let's start the show. At the time of me writing this script, I'm staring at the white layout of a Google Doc, debating how to even begin the start of this video. I'm so filled with rage and vitriol at what I just finished witnessing that I'm deciding to work through the fact that I'm visibly shivering. For me, basketball is my favorite sport. Not because I actually played it, but it was also the one genre of video game my fiercely anti-video game father actually tolerated. I would be molded by arcade-style basketball titles from Nintendo 64's NBA Hang Time, PlayStation 2's NBA Street Volume 2, and NBA Ballers, until eventually jumping to NBA 2K13 when I decided to start making video reviews. After sinking in a ridiculous amount of time playing NBA 2K20, I would like to say that 2K games shouldn't make traditional video games anymore. You might want to sit down for this one, because I'm not holding back. Here's my review of NBA 2K20. NBA 2K20 is another installment of the NBA 2K franchise. Developed by Visual Concepts and published by 2K Sports, NBA 2K20 is a microtransaction-bogged, advertisement-filled nightmare made to drain money from their player base, completely ruining what would have been an otherwise solid basketball game. NBA 2K20 is a simulation-based sports game, which means there is a focus on creating a strategic experience that combines all the presentation of a live NBA broadcast. The closest it gets to shining is on the court, where playing the game becomes a battle of wits. You'll run plays trying to fight to score on offense while shutting down your opponents with lockdown defense. It's through these decisions of how to plan your approach, taking consideration of a player's stats, their ability badges, positioning in relation to their opponents, and their current fatigue where you'll find enjoyment. It's just a shame how everything else is handled poorly. From the warping of an assistant coach to the camera wanting to ghost through Nick Nurse so we can stare at all them polygons, NBA 2K20 falls apart the longer you play it. There's nothing quite like cutting over to the cheerleaders during a timeout only to find their faces perpetually locked in an expression, as if screaming from the ether that you put them out of their misery. These minor glitches are issues that should have been smoothed out by this stage of development. I picked up NBA 2K20 for free in July as a result of the PlayStation Network drop. The game still has these issues as a result of 2K games focusing on rampant monetization. Before I talk about the monetization, let's talk about 2K20's My Career mode. The My Career mode is a merger of two parts: the single season story, When the Lights Are Brightest, and the usual single player season with a created character. During the storyline, you play the role as Che, a basketball player from Bay City University who decides to sit out the championships in protest after a teammate gets injured and loses his scholarship as a result. This is actually a pretty serious topic, since college athletics, last time I checked, have been nothing short of torture. This topic has been covered in various news stories, so I'm not really going to get into it here. What I will say is that the key players are star-studded both on screen and on the court. The basketball players who offer their talents in the story are a mixed bag, since not all athletes have acting chops. I would mention that A-list talent such as Idris Elba and Rosario Dawson are utilized, but the story is not satisfactory. This campaign is really just a small origin story for your journey to the regular NBA season. As such, Che's story about standing up for college athletes and challenging the system falls completely by the wayside once you get drafted. Keep in mind, I know sports games don't have much nuance, but if Tony Hawk's Underground can have a 3-act structure that ends in a satisfying conclusion, why not a sports game? Idris Elba becomes your coach in the NBA and then promptly vanishes when you start the season. Normally, you find a way to wrap this up with no loose ends, but apparently, that's just too much work for some people. Now, in regards for who is to blame for this, I do not fully know that information. What I do know is When the Lights Are Brightest was directed by Sheldon Candace and written by Taylor Matinee. I believe the blame falls on those two, with pressure from the executive branch also being a contributing factor. I don't know what went wrong, but there needed to be an arc where Idris Elba's character redeems himself. Having him go up to the pros and coaching you again doesn't change his character flaws. Neither does it change the system that throws away a university scholarship because of an injury. The story was poorly executed and it needed more time to be ironed out. Time which we all know is not available because of the pigeonhole annual sports releases are forced to deal with. Is your game broken? Doesn't matter. We need the next one ready and up in time for the Christmas season. An issue that, frankly, most gamers wouldn't really mind if you took a year off to make a better product. Not even competitive fighting games put themselves to that hectic a schedule. When you go to the playoffs, the ADR is completely off on Kenny the Jet Smith to the point where it doesn't match what the character's mouth is actually saying. The audio is also not properly mixed with the pregame show, as the playoff audience noise completely drowns out the on-camera talent. Shaquille O'Neal is desperately in need of a boost in the mix, as he is borderline undecipherable. Somebody get this man some subtitles! Once you are playing your first season of NBA 2K20, you might think the My Career mode is quite well put together. You are given chances to do more than just play basketball, such as giving interviews and doing events that primarily tie in with a career in the NBA. However, there comes a point, usually after the first season, where those moments just completely go away. It got to the point where the only cutscenes that occurred were when the team was losing going into halftime, and the post-game interview where you get asked the same repetitive questions until you just decide to skip it altogether. As you play through seasons, you have the end goal of being inducted into the Hall of Fame. I managed to get 7 out of the 6 required allocades to retire, and I got treated to a small press conference where you can hear people laughing in the background. Apparently, the right ending didn't trigger, and as a result, it soured my opinions on this franchise. In between games, you spend your time in the neighborhood, which is an online hub for other players. The first thing that happened when I jumped on was I received an in-game advertisement on how I could spend my money on 2K's virtual currency to upgrade my character. I want you to think about what I just said. Before doing anything, and I mean anything, NBA 2K20 is trying to pressure me to spend money. Frankly speaking, I'm a single-player kind of person, but if you are someone planning to play the online features, you might be tempted to sink money into it. When you start playing online for the first time, you will get your ass handed to you. That constant feeling of loss makes you think that maybe if I spend money, I might be able to bypass what my experience lacks. Or as the game calls it, push myself to be a My Career legend. Frankly speaking, when I play these games, I try my best to make a character that plays and has the same stats as me, which usually means I'm making a 5'11", 182-pound two-way playmaker who, because of his height, instantly has a -20 to interior defense. Apparently, eugenics is alive and well in the character creator for NBA 2K20. When you're not playing NBA games, you get to hone your ability badges in the forms of team practices. On paper, this could be a great way of training new players on the intricate mechanics of gameplay, but instead it turns into a disjointed mess. It devolves into minigames that don't really explain how to correctly perform tasks such as on-ball defense and when to contest or flat-out block shots. When I decided to focus on outlet passing and did back-to-back exercises, I discovered the drill made me play on the mirrored side of the original court and kept the lines from when I was first using it. Essentially, I was running an exercise with markers that were incorrectly labeled, forcing me to play from memory as opposed to following the game's instructions. I also want to put this on record. NBA 2K20 currently has the most toxic fanbase I have ever had to deal with. At first, that honor went to Red Dead Online, but congrats! 2K has exceeded as I was belittled and bullied by my own teammates as well as opponents. The most common insult thrown at me was what I like to abbreviate as BAN, B-A-N, which stands for bitch, ass, and I cannot say that last word because I'm white. NBA 2K20 combines the toxicity of gaming culture with the toxicity of sports culture all in one awful bow. Add in the addictive monetization strategies and constant daily prize loops of the mobile game market, and you have a dumpster fire of a AAA title. It can't even get online play right, as connectivity issues to the 2K servers is a nightmare regardless of your connection. When you are playing a strategic basketball game, a 0.5 millisecond input lag makes your game unplayable. If you lose connection, you get booted from being able to play the single-player matches against CPU opponents. Every day, you get the opportunity to use the Daily Spin prize wheel, which is frankly there to develop addictive habits in the gamer so they can keep coming back. There's also the Gatorade training facility where every week you can participate in minigames that are not fun in order to get a stat increase. Some of the instructions are not properly labeled, and as a result, to this day, I have no idea how to use the medicine ball exercise. A huge part of me thinks it actually might be broken. Dumbbells and squats actually have a gradual, harder success window the better you do, possibly suggesting NBA 2K20 tries to kneecap the player. If you manage to win the playoffs, you end up getting the Gym Rat badge, which gives you the bonuses from the training facility permanently. Essentially, you're rewarding the player to never again use a portion of the game. It was a frustrating waste of time by design. Also built into the game are vendors who give out stat boosts and turbo boosts, which can be purchased using virtual currency on top of being given out via prize wheel. Remember that argument on how monetization is fine so long as it's used for just cosmetic reasons? 2K Games just flagrantly throws pay-to-win monetization, despite the $80 Canadian price tag that they had at launch. 2K Games needs to pick a lane. What I suggest is they either sell us an $80 game at launch, or they can go free to play and fill it with microtransactions. You can't have your cake and fuck it too. Especially when you sell a janky, incomplete experience, which is what NBA 2K20 is. It's not as if 2K is in desperate need of money, as according to articles reported by Sean Murray of The Gamer and Eddie McCuck of GameSpot, microtransactions make up 54% of Take-Two's, aka 2K's, $760.5 million overall net revenue for 2019. They make roughly $410 million on microtransactions alone. They don't need both. You can't look at me and say how much it costs to make when you are not only exploiting that much money from your player base, but also making money from corporate sponsorships that air uninterruptible commercials during the loading screens before a game. What's that, 2K? Sorry, I can't hear ya. You need to take Beats by Dre's out of your mouth. Also, I have to ask, when Ruffles decides to give you the business end, do they use their sunflower oil as lube, or do they go in dry so you can really feel that crunch? Besides the My Career mode, you have access to My Team mode, which once again might be fun if not for the rampant monetization in it. Players get the ability to compete in challenges that reward you with points that you can use for random drops. These drops can contain everything from players, modifiers, and uniforms. Essentially, you have premium currency in the form of My Team points on top of virtual currency. Right next to where you trade those points in is a reminder how you can spend actual money to get virtual currency, which you can trade in for card packs. Loot boxes need to die. Outside of My Team is My League, where you can play through a season with the current roster, take over as a general manager, and create your own playoffs. I don't really play these modes. Frankly speaking, the My GM mode would have been interesting if not for the fact the tutorial is non-existent and just assumes you know how to play from the get-go. According to fans on Reddit, it's apparently a downgrade compared to previous versions. There's pages and pages of stuff that I can do and no explanation how to properly do it. How do you expect me to give Hollis Jefferson more minutes when I have no idea how to? NBA 2K20 is a f***ing mess. Its soundtrack is filled with a wide assortment of rap and one rock song. Not even a good one. I'm talking about C-class Motley Crue here. I'm not asking for much, but when you create a soundtrack, you go for stuff that'll blow minds. I might be a little bit spoiled having access to 2000s era Electronic Arts and Tony Hawk, but 2K20 isn't doing it for me the same way NBA Street did. At one point in the My Career mode, you get to choose what your theme music is before the tip-off. At least that's what I'm told, because despite what I try to do, the Raptors still come out to the poorly written I'm Dope by Toby Ningwe featuring David Mitchell Wyatt. A song so monotonous, the only thing noteworthy is when it drops names of actually talented people in the lyrics. NBA 2K20 is a game that isn't worth the price of admission. It's got bugs and glitches that are unforgivable from an $80 AAA game title. I got the game for free and I still want my money back. The problem with this franchise is a result of making yearly installations and an aggressive focus on microtransactions which prey on kids and those with addictive personalities. Yet because they have no competition and essentially hold a monopoly on NBA-related games, they can get away with whatever twisted monetization scheme they want. Its My Career mode falls off the rails after the first season, which is of note because, let's face it, early reviewers of this game wouldn't know about it because they have deadlines to meet. 2K Sports doesn't deserve our money, and as a result, I'm announcing I'm boycotting them. They can join the ranks of Electronic Arts, post Mirror's Edge 2, and possibly Ubisoft. I'm SonicMTD. Goodbye and good riddance. This video was proudly supported by Unsung Heroes of Patreon.
Hey everybody, Matthew Tyler DeLeo, better known as SonicMTD, saying thank you so much for catching my one-shot video of NBA 2K20. If you like that video, please be sure to like and subscribe and leave me a comment in the comments down below. Regardless of what it is, I always give it a good once-over, so if there's anything that you can possibly give to critique so that I can improve my craft, let me know. And if you look up here on this side of the webpage, it'll be whatever YouTube recommends that you watch. And down here is going to be an entire playlist of everything that I have done for my series Always Write Reviews. So if this is your first time seeing me, maybe you want to see more. Either way, I'm not going to take up any more of your time. My name is Matthew Tyler DeLeo, better known as SonicMTD. Happy New Year, arigato gozaimasu, and later days.